You are 7 years old. Your mother is standing at the door. She's not crying. Spartan mothers don't cry. A man from the state has come to take you away. Not as punishment, not because you did something wrong, because you are a boy. And in Sparta, every boy belongs to the state. You will not sleep in this house again for 23 years. Welcome to your life as a Spartan warrior. And it starts with the worst childhood in human history. But let's go back further, because your story didn't start at 7. It started at birth. In Sparta, the moment you are born, you are inspected, not by your parents, by a council of elders. They examine your body for weakness, deformity, or any sign that you might not become a warrior. If they decide you're not strong enough, you are taken to a cliff on Mount Taygetus and left there to die. This isn't legend, this is policy. In Sparta, you don't get to be born, you get to be approved. If you pass the inspection, you go home, for now. Your first 7 years are spent with your mother. But even this isn't normal childhood. Spartan babies were bathed in wine, not water, to test their reaction. If the baby screamed or convulsed, it was considered weak. From day 1, Sparta was watching, and at age 7, the state comes to collect. The training program is called the Agoge. It's not school, it's not camp. It's a 23-year program designed to turn children into the most lethal soldiers the ancient world had ever seen. At age 7, you enter the paides, the first stage. You live in a barracks with other boys. You sleep on reeds that you pull from the riverbank yourself. You are given 1 cloak per year. No shoes, no blankets. In summer and in winter, 1 cloak. You are deliberately underfed, not because Sparta can't afford food, but because they want you hungry. A hungry boy learns to steal, and in Sparta, stealing food is encouraged. But if you get caught, you are beaten severely, not for stealing, for being sloppy enough to get caught. The lesson isn't don't steal, the lesson is don't get caught. That's Spartan education. The fighting starts immediately. Boys are organized into groups and forced to fight each other. No rules, no referees. Older boys beat younger ones to toughen them. You learn to take pain without showing it. You learn to give pain without hesitating. There is a festival in Sparta called the Diamastigosis, where boys are publicly whipped at the altar of Artemis. The boy who endures the most lashes without crying out wins. Parents watch, they cheer. This is Spartan entertainment. At age 12, it gets worse. You're given even less clothing. You sleep outside in all weather, on reeds you cut yourself. Your training intensifies. Wrestling, weapons, endurance marches, swimming in freezing rivers. You are taught to read and write, but only barely, because Spartans didn't value words. They valued action. What they did value in speech was brevity. The word laconic, meaning to say much in few words, comes from Laconia, the region of Sparta. And Spartans were brutally good at it. When Philip II of Macedonia, Alexander the Great's father, sent a message to Sparta saying, "If I invade Laconia, I will raze Sparta to the ground," the Spartans replied with 1 word, "if." That's it. 1 word, no further explanation needed. Philip never invaded Sparta. When told that Persian arrows would be so numerous they'd block out the sun, the Spartan warrior Leonidas replied, "Then we shall fight in the shade." That's not a movie line, that's a real quote. Let's talk about what you eat. Spartan warriors eat communally in mess halls called Crypteia. Groups of about 15 men eat together. The signature dish is black broth, melas zomos, pork blood, vinegar, salt. A visitor from another Greek city once tasted it and said, "Now I understand why Spartans don't fear death." You contribute food to the Crypteia from your land. If you can't afford to contribute, you lose your citizenship. In Sparta, eating alone means you failed.
At 18, the most capable young Spartans enter the Crypteia. This is where the Agoge stops being training and starts being something much darker. You're sent into the countryside at night, armed with only a knife, wearing only a cloak. Your mission, find and kill helots. Helots are the enslaved population of Messenia, conquered by Sparta generations ago. They outnumber Spartan citizens 7-1, and Sparta is terrified of a helot revolt. So every year, Sparta formally declares war on the helots. This legal declaration means any Spartan can kill a helot without it being murder. The Crypteia sends young men to do exactly that, targeting helots who look too strong, too confident, or too capable of organizing resistance. Kill them, return before dawn. It's state-sanctioned assassination disguised as a training exercise. This isn't the heroic Sparta from the movies. This is the real one. At 20, you're a full warrior, but you still can't go home. You live in the barracks with your unit. You train daily. You eat communally. If you get married, and Spartans did marry, you visit your wife in secret at night, then return to the barracks before dawn. This arrangement continued until age 30. 30. That's when a Spartan man was finally allowed to live with his own family, 23 years after being taken from his mother's door. Now the women. Spartan women were unlike any women in the ancient Greek world. In Athens, women were property, confined to the home, no education, no rights. In Sparta, women exercised publicly, naked. They wrestled, they threw javelins, they competed in athletic festivals. Not to become warriors, but to become strong mothers who would bear strong children. Spartan women could own property. By the 4th century BC, women controlled roughly 40% of all Spartan land. They could divorce their husbands. They ran entire estates while men lived in barracks, and they were famous for their sharp tongues. When a woman from Athens asked Queen Gorgo why Spartan women were the only women who could rule men, Gorgo replied, because only Spartan women give birth to real men. And the most famous Spartan phrase of all, spoken by mothers to their sons leaving for war, "Come back with your shield," or "on it," meaning return victorious or return dead, but never return having dropped your shield. The shield. This is the center of everything. A Spartan shield, the aspis, weighed about 30 pounds. It was large enough to cover you from chin to knee. But here's what made Sparta different from every other army. Your shield doesn't protect you. It protects the man standing next to you. In the Phalanx formation, each warrior's shield covers the right side of the man to his left. If you drop your shield, you don't just endanger yourself, you kill the man beside you. That's why dropping your shield was the ultimate disgrace. Losing your sword, acceptable. You can fight with your hands. Losing your shield, unforgivable, because it was never just yours.
The phalanx was Sparta's defining weapon. Warriors stood shoulder to shoulder, shields locked, spears forward. The front line pushed, the back lines reinforced. The formation moved as one body. Breaking the enemy's phalanx meant victory. Losing yours meant death. Spartans trained in phalanx from childhood. They could march, turn, and reform in total silence, communicating through the sound of a flute player. No shouting, no chaos, just synchronized killing set to music. Sparta had no walls. Every other Greek city-state built fortifications. Sparta didn't. When asked why Sparta had no walls, King Agesilaus pointed to his warriors and said, "These are Sparta's walls." That's not arrogance. That's a statement of fact. For over 300 years, no foreign army set foot in Sparta. Now, Thermopylae. 480 BC. The Persian Empire, the largest the world has ever seen, is invading Greece. King Xerxes commands an army estimated between 100,000 and 300,000 soldiers. Sparta sends 300 warriors under King Leonidas.
300, against the largest army on Earth. But they weren't alone. About 7,000 Greek allies joined them at the narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae, the Hot Gates. The pass is so narrow that the Persians can't use their numbers. For 2 days, 300 Spartans and their allies hold the line. The Persian elite, the immortals, are thrown at them and broken. Xerxes watches from his throne as wave after wave fails. On the 3rd day, a local trader named Ephialtes shows the Persians a mountain path around the pass. Leonidas learns he's been betrayed. He dismisses most of the Greek allies. The Spartans stay, along with 700 Thespians who refuse to leave. They know they're going to die. Leonidas tells his men to eat a good breakfast, for tonight we dine in Hades. The final stand is brutal. When their spears break, they fight with swords. When their swords shatter, they fight with hands, teeth, and rocks. All 300 Spartans die, along with the Thespians and others who stayed. But their sacrifice buys Greece enough time to regroup. The Greeks go on to win the war, and the 300 become legend. An epitaph was carved at the battle site. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. 2,500 years later, those words are still there. But Sparta had a fatal flaw. The same system that made them invincible also made them fragile. Full Spartan citizens were always a minority. At Thermopylae, Sparta had maybe 8,000 citizens total. Every death was irreplaceable. The rigid system meant no flexibility, no adaptation, no way to replace losses. In 371 BC, at the Battle of Leuctra, the Theban general Epaminondas defeated the Spartan army for the first time in history. He didn't just beat them, he broke them. Sparta never recovered. The population shrank, the system collapsed. The helots they'd terrorized for centuries eventually gained freedom. The training program that produced the greatest warriors in history also produced a society too rigid to survive change. Sparta didn't fall to a stronger enemy. It fell to its own design. The machine was perfect until it wasn't. 2 kings ruled simultaneously, not because Sparta trusted its leaders, but because it didn't. Each king checked the other's power. Spartans invented a system of checks and balances 2,000 years before anyone else. They feared tyranny more than invasion. That's why they had no walls, no luxury, and no tolerance for weakness. Everything in Sparta was designed around one principle: the state survives, the individual doesn't matter. Here's what most people miss about Sparta. It wasn't just a military culture. It was the most extreme experiment in collective discipline ever attempted. They took human beings, starting at birth, and tried to engineer perfect soldiers. And for 300 years, it worked. They dominated Greece. They terrified Persia. They became the standard against which every warrior culture would be measured. But the cost was staggering. Children torn from families, an enslaved population living in terror, a society with no art, no philosophy, and no room for anything except war. They had no walls because their warriors were the walls. They had no art because war was the art. They had no long speeches because one word was enough: if. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.